What's going on, everybody? It's May 30th. We're back, fifth down territory, 100 days from kickoff. Let's go. It's Lamb, Louie, Bahookie. We got a special guest, Nolan, here with us because Shane couldn't make it this week. Don't forget, we're hosted by StadiumRant. Go check us out at StadiumRant.com. Go give our YouTube a subscribe real quick. Also, StadiumRant proudly presents Sportsmanlike Misconduct, which is hosted weekly on Wednesdays by Carson McKinley. He's always coming up with innovative ways to bring this content into the community. After this episode, be sure to give him a sub too in his channel. Check out his recent 2023 NFL records prediction as well. So, what's going on, fellas? We got the news from the front. It's right now. It's D-Hop watch. Everybody is, all 32 teams, probably besides the Cardinals, want him on his team. So, how you guys feeling? Who wants to start it off?
Bahookie? You know who wants to start?
Yeah, oh wait, I don't know. I don't see him. Do you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Yeah, trying to temper the expectations right now. There's all kinds of reports coming out right now. I've been pretty outspoken about wanting him to be the next piece to add to our offense. Kind of see him back in the 90s Bills with is like the James Lofton type when the Bills already had Andre Reed, and then they brought in James Lofton to be their number 2 wide receiver to kind of put them over the top. From everything I'm seeing, it seems like the Bills and the Chiefs are the favorites. But the funny thing about that is they're the 2 teams that have the 31st and 32nd amount of salary cap available. Doesn't mean that they can't make it happen in the modern NFL by moving around some cap money and changing some stuff over to signing bonus, restructuring, extending. But there's going to be a number of hoops to jump through, and I don't know who the Chiefs GM is offhand. It's
Brett Beach.
Brett Beach. Okay, good one. Good little tidbit. But I know Brandon Beane has said that he's not going to be in the Les Snead business of mortgaging the future to sell out for 1 or 2 years. I don't think that bringing in D-Hop for a year or 2 mortgages your future. There's some people in Bills Mafia that have made the argument that that's going to like stunt the growth of the other guys who are lower in the depth chart, like the Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Justin Shorter, Trent Schofield they signed, and so people are talking about how that would work out, but I think
I don't think you care very much about the development of those players at the moment when D-Hop's lurking.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this whole laundry list of reasons why the team is better with D-Hop, but I think the biggest thing is not wanting him to go to Kansas City. And I think that's the biggest thing with Kansas City too, is not wanting him to go to Buffalo and being a player that you're going to have to see probably twice a year, once in a big time regular season game, and then probably again in a playoff game. And
for all the marbles.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different teams he could go to, and I'm honestly, I don't know, maybe it's a little arrogant of me to say, but I would feel better about him going to the Jets or the Patriots at this point than I would about him going to the Chiefs.
For sure.
And that's really kind of where I'm at right now. Is I think there's a lot of different contenders in there too. Besides those teams, there's the Browns. There's the Cowboys. There's
Houston's been creeping.
The Ravens. There's a lot of different candidates there, but I mean, obviously, like I'm most happy if he goes to the Bills, and I'm most upset if he goes to the Chiefs.
So from that point, Nolan, you're kind of a Chiefs fan, correct? You're more Cowboys fan, but you're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
living in the KC area, I feel like it's foolish of me to not know a lot about the Chiefs, and they just happen to be pretty good. So, I would say the Chiefs are probably going to be less aggressive than other teams are, just because they've already kind of shown their comfortability with having Travis Kelce, with having MVS, with having Kadarius Toney. Losing Juju was not a huge loss for them. Even I know you're happy to get him.
Massive gain for us. You guys are just like, yeah, you can leave. We're just
like he's just. At first, it's like, oh no, what are we going to do? And then you got to remember who's still left behind. And then they had a good draft. They went out and got who they needed. And then they're bringing Justin Watson's going to be back, the Clemson wide receiver that they did not have last year. That kid is going to be special. Brings lots of speed, good midfield receiver. There's really no need for D-Hop. I think the only reason they would go after him is to be like, oh, haha, gotcha, look who we have now. Like Thanos getting the Infinity Stones type thing. It's like bring him in, pair him with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, and it's just more star power. So, I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't say no if the price is right. But if the price is very, very off, Veach is smart with his money. He's not going to get a rental deal if it doesn't make sense. For sure.
So, Louie, as a fan of a team who already has had DeAndre Hopkins on his team, what's the word? What's the inside scoop?
Yeah, I mean, you see everything going around. You see the guys on Twitter being like posting pictures with him at a gas station in Houston and be like, he told me he's coming back. But it's cool, you know. I hope he did tell you that. Realistically, I think it comes down to what he wants. If he wants a ring, I think you're going to see the conversation very much Chiefs-Bills. If he's looking for a big contract, I think you'll very much see a mid to kind of bottom seller tier team go after him. So it really just depends on how he wants to end his career. Personally, I just don't see the Chiefs coming up with him. I've seen a lot of reports that they think Kadarius Toney is a future one. You already have Travis Kelce. You drafted Sky Moore last year. He didn't get a ton of playing time. And like Nolan said, I think maybe you get him just to keep the Bills from having him. But I think if he's lurking in that contract range, I think the Bills would shift things up to pull him in more than Veach would. So I personally think he'll end up going, I don't know, somewhere a little more mid-tier maybe. You know, I could really see – I'd have to look at cap space. I think the Panthers would make sense. That's a pretty middling wide receiver room. If you're going to look for a rookie quarterback, why not the number one overall? He knows Frank Reich. He asked for a great defense. He asked for a steady ownership. Low-key, I think the Panthers fit most of that. And obviously the Texans reunion is attractive, but we're not in a competing stance right now. And I just don't know, you know, unless they offer him like 15, 18 mil a year, which I think is more than most teams are going to try and give him. I don't know why he would want to come back to Houston right now, other than he already had here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really make sense to their like team build currently.
Yeah.
I actually said the Panthers is one of the teams to watch a couple of weeks ago when we all knew that he was getting either cut or like moved for little. I said that the Panthers might swoop in there. I'm still hoping for the Pats. I would love that for them. They would have to be one of the teams who probably throw a little bit of money, but I don't think they're that far off from being in a conversation.
The Bill O'Brien.
I think it was more Steve McNair. I mean, you would probably know more than me, but like I feel like a Bill Belichick maybe be like, hey man, let's work this out. I mean, he might get over it type of thing.
I think you have a greater argument for that, maybe with more stability at the quarterback position, but I don't know.
If this was last year though, would that stability be there? Like at the beginning of last year before the season we just watched?
I mean, he talked about wanting a quarterback that loves the game. A great defense, I think the Pats have. Stable ownership, I think the Pats have. I think it's just that question of, you know, Matt Jones really having a hard time working with his offensive coordinator. I also just don't
Who
know.
was Matt Patricia?
Okay, but now it's Bill O'Brien. I know
Who
everybody's
is
acting
just like
this
light
dude.
years ahead, but like it's not
not.
like
You're gonna see 2 runs up the middle on your first 2 downs.
he was already our offensive coordinator in 2011, or there was 2000 when McDaniels left, went to Denver. I understand, but it was at least a functional offense. Correct?
Everything I hear about how their interactions ended, I would have a hard time imagining he goes there unless the paycheck is significantly more than anywhere else.
Which is why I don't believe it's going to happen. I'm saying I would like it to happen as a Pats fan, but I could see a path where it does. Is basically where I'm at.
I can't imagine many teams don't want to add Hop unless you're like the Bengals.
Yeah, like what will we do?
Or maybe the Dolphins, but I'm having a hard time imagining any team who has a better wide receiver 2 than DeAndre Hopkins right now.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. So that's our D-Hop watch. That took us 11 minutes. We're not doing this under an hour, by the way, just so everybody knows. So Jimmy G, his contract, I didn't know this when they signed it, but he can be cut at no cost because of the injury clause. So he got injured. He's currently doing what Jimmy G does, not attending things. And they can basically cut him for no cost. It's a matter of do you think he can start even 8 games, or like what are you gonna do then? Because Stidham went to Denver, correct? Yeah, so Stidham went to Denver. That quarterback room is not strong. They didn't draft anybody. So what do you guys think about that? Anybody want to?
They can have Davis Mills for a 3rd round pick. Done.
That's not a bad. What about Trey Lance for a 2nd?
Yeah, I could see it, although I don't think that system really lends itself to a mobile quarterback. I don't think their offensive line is athletic enough to really have like a runner back there. I think you really at this point just have to hope you can get the Jimmy G thing resolved. I don't know, unless this is a pure tanking masterclass and they signed him knowing that
he did just enough so that like the expectations didn't go high enough, but like they're like, okay, well now we have to do this.
Because you downgrade like 5% from Derek Carr, and everyone's like, well, if they thought it was going to work last year, sure. Now you've got a questionable Jimmy Garoppolo. Their 2nd is Brian Hoyer. Their 3rd, Aiden O'Connell. So there's not a starter in there right now.
Nope.
And I just don't see the Raiders in a position where they're going to be looking to give up a 2nd right now. They're so far. They have so many problems. Yeah. And then I don't know how long Adams' contract goes.
They extended him, I thought.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's a big deal as soon as he went there.
But he is also kind of publicly unhappy.
Oh yeah. So I could see him being moved before the season starts.
Yeah, I think you really just have to kind of watch what happens between now and that NFL kickoff window, because they may just kind of blow some of those pieces up and just punt, and Caleb Williams season or Drake May or whoever you think you're going to get at the top there.
Dude, they would draft Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what they would do. Watch. Which would make me so sad, because like he's gonna be a top 5 wide receiver like his 2nd day in the league. That dude's gonna be problematic. Nolan, Blake, you guys want to step in on this Jimmy G thing here, or the state of the Raiders maybe?
I just think right now the Raiders are kind of tiptoeing around what they want to do with Jimmy G, because like you guys said, they are in a very, very bad situation for quarterbacks to be like, oh, we might just have to cut him. Because who do you realistically turn to? And that's where I think you guys hit that on the nose. They're gonna have to start looking for trade packages, see what they can get. Realistically, I think they'll try to keep Devontae Adams there as kind of like a selling point. Like, hey, we'll give you Jimmy G with that same clause for a first and maybe a couple other picks if they want to make it a big time splash. But I don't know. They're going to tiptoe around this and draw this out as long as they possibly can, because right now I bet you they're freaking out and they don't know where they're going to go with the quarterback room.
I almost feel like they should have traded out of their first round pick this year to try and get a first round pick next year, so they could be in that, like, they could have that flexibility to try and trade up for a quarterback. But Blake, you got any thoughts on that or this in general?
You guys pretty much hit all of them. I don't know. I don't believe it personally, but I have seen some talks about Tom Brady taking that job and coming out of retirement. But I think that's just a bunch of
hoo-ha.
Yeah.
I feel you on that. All right, so that kind of does it for our news. Wasn't really all that eventful. Oh, you got something?
One thing to this. So I don't know if you guys have been reading this stuff, but there's a clause in this article where Garoppolo expressly acknowledges and waives the risk of further injury and permanent disability by continuing play, which I think is crazy. So if you actually read the clause, it doesn't sound like this is a run-of-the-mill kind of injury.
He might be beat, career
over. This really, we're all talking about him just getting cut, but the way this reads, this may be the end of Jimmy's career. He just might not be able to play again.
That's B to say, or C, not say, but to see happen. It did just he was a really talent. He had a lot of talent, I would say. It was kind of stuffed behind Brady for a while. He got injured, but then I just feel like his body just couldn't hold up on that. But we'll see what happens. I hope that he can make it back and play, but that you could be very, very right here. You heard it first from Louie on fifth down that Jimmy Garoppolo might be retiring. Whoa. All right, so we'll get from that and we'll go to the toss. This week on the toss, we got whose seat is hotter, Bill Belichick or Mike McCarthy. So, Blake, you didn't really get to talk about the last thing, so you can start with this.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. To start with, I don't think that you can fire Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick has to stay. And I don't think he's going to do that. Mike McCarthy, you can absolutely fire. I guess I would say Mike McCarthy, but in recent years, I think Mike McCarthy's had the better product on the field. I think Bill Belichick is getting very old, and I don't even mean that physically. I think mentally, he's not showing a willingness to change. And I think the way he behaved through the whole Matt Patricia, Joe Judge thing last year was just so asinine. And I don't think he gives what any of us think. He's got 6 rings. And
he likes to say 7 because of the brand or 8.
Oh, because
the Giants. The Giants.
Yeah. So I would say that the seat is probably harder for Mike McCarthy, just because of, I don't try to shit on the Cowboys so much, but it can't be denied that there is a culture that's been curated by Jerry Jones over the last 20, 30 some odd years. And the Cowboys are more like football cinema than most other organizations. and And like, yeah, and that was something that Cole Beasley talked a lot about when he left Dallas to come to Buffalo, was that he really appreciated like how like when in Buffalo it was like more of just pure football there, and there's just all the lights and whatnot, PR and that come with Cowboys. So because of all of that, I think that there's less leash for McCarthy. McCarthy won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, but Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? He's won one play game, one or two.
Nolan is itching to jump into this conversation here. He's clawing out.
Nolan, for what it's worth, I did pick the Cowboys this year to win their division because it's been a pattern that division doesn't have a repeat champion, division winner, not champion, whatever. And nobody is really talking about the Cowboys this year. And the Cowboys are a team that does better when expectations are lower. And I picked them to make it to the NFC Championship this year and lose to the 49ers in that game. But that was my unbiased opinion. I'll let it go on to Nolan though, because he's definitely got a thing or two to say.
I just that might be the only way to talk about the Dallas Cowboys since Jerry Jones took over his cinema. A documentary worthy team, Hard Knocks only worthy team. Out of the two of them, Belichick will die before somebody else is coaching there. And they might bury him under Gillette. They might. Who knows? But it's definitely going to be McCarthy. I think there's just this standard around coaching for the Cowboys where it's like, oh, if you don't do this in this X amount of years, you're gone. Even though Jerry didn't really stand by that because he kept Jason Garrett around far longer than he really needed to. But I think McCarthy is starting to kind of carve out a solid stature there. They've won quite a few games since he's been there. And you got to give him some kind of credit. Only thing is they aren't performing in the playoffs. And, yeah, they do only have 2 playoff wins since McCarthy has arrived. So they went playoff win in 2021, off year, and then playoff win this year. So it was it's been disappointing. I definitely think if you had to pick, it's McCarthy, just because eventually you got to get to the point where it's like, we can't let this drag on. And with the offseason moves they made, you don't go out and get guys like Brandon Cooks to add to the wide receiver room unless you plan on competing again, which I don't know why they didn't just keep Amari Cooper if you're going to pay Brandon Cooks eventually the same price. But I'm not Jerry. I don't run it. I'd love to, but I definitely think it's McCarthy. He's got to figure it out. And the NFC Championship is that hump he can't seem to get back over, even though he did it in Green Bay.
So I do think it's McCarthy, but I think it's a lot closer. I think Bill's leash is way shorter than both of you think. Like Blake, like you said, the asinine, like, just display of arrogance last year.
It's okay to do that when you're winning.
Yeah, when you're winning football games, it's fine, and you got Tom Brady there, and like everything just. We're winning Super Bowls every year. We're in it every single year. That's fine. Do whatever the hell you want. Run it the way you'd like. Let me step aside, watch you do your greatness. But again, he is now old. He is set in his ways. He has said on the record that he wants to work with people who he's comfortable with. He's rather than try and coach up better players who are like difficult. So the Matt Patricia Joe Judge experiment last year, like I think he lost 3/4 of his rope there. Like we haven't won a playoff game in what 4 years now. Last playoff game we won was the Super Bowl, was the Rams Super Bowl. It was the last playoff game we won. So that's unacceptable in my lifetime. I've never seen that before. So just not okay. After that, I think McCarthy's only been the head coach for 2 years or 3 years. No, 3. Okay, so
coming up, I think we're either going into year 4 or
Yeah,
this is year 4. Like we're going into 4.
I don't like that hire. Hated that hire. Just disagree completely. Mike McCarthy is one of like just the negative coaches in the league. He might have created himself a little bit, but he had Aaron Rodgers. He won 1 Super Bowl. That's not something like I don't feel like that's an accomplishment. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'm just wicked spoiled, but like if that team was coached by Belichick, they'd probably have I don't know. I feel like Rodgers would have won 3 or 4. So the answer is McCarthy because of the way that the Patriots and the Cowboys are run. But Belichick, if he doesn't perform this year, like he does not have that like gravitas now to just be like, I'm doing whatever I want. Like it's just not there anymore, in my opinion. Got a couple of comments. Louie, you can go.
Yeah, so I obviously the obvious answer is McCarthy here. But I think what we're talking about with Belichick more is a legacy. Is he ever going to come out of the shadow of Tom Brady? When you look back at history, Tom won with the Bucs without him against what some are going to consider to be the new dynasty. So some things I think that don't get talked about enough. Mike McCarthy was the head coach of Green Bay for 13 years, which doesn't seem real. I honestly don't remember him coaching for that long. And during that time, he had Ted Thompson as his general manager, pretty much that entire stretch. I don't think Ted Thompson was a good GM at all. And I think part of the lack of success there really does come from how they drafted over that time.
Austin getting in mean hooks out here.
We didn't have Austin on the show.
He couldn't make it. I think he's at work commenting. So shout out to you.
Yeah, good for you, man. This is way more important.
Yeah.
I also think we need to talk about the fact, people play over Belichick's time as the head coach of the Browns, but he did that for 5 years. Every time that's talked about, they make it sound like he did it for 1 season, and then he moved to the Jets and right to the Patriots. So you're talking about, we're going on like a 8 or 9 year stretch, whatever it is, where he doesn't have Tom Brady, where he doesn't win anything. So,
correct.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like firing, I kind of agree with Blake. I don't know if you fire Bill Belichick. I think it'll be like a mutual parting of ways. I don't think Kraft's going to come out and be like, we let him go. I think they'll be like, oh, he retired. But I really think what Bill is playing for now is I think you have to make a deep playoff run without Tom Brady to be able to say, I had a big part of this. Because we're entering a dangerous conversation of how good were these guys that actually played around Brady, or was it Brady that made them good? Because Bill's drafting since Brady left has been abysmal. Been bad.
even drafting in 20, I believe it was 2015 to 2019, like that stretch there, he was just like in the first, so he lost first round picks too, like for doing whatever he does, you know what I mean? He's like, those type of things at the moment, I'm like, I don't care. We're winning Super Bowls. Do whatever you want. Now I'm sitting here like, man, looking at that pick we lost, I was like, that was Lamar Jackson or like something like it, you know what I mean? He picked N'Keal Harry over every other receiver in that draft who turned out to be good, every single one, except for N'Keal Harry. The Isaiah Wynn, Sony Michel, that was like that should have been a Nick Chubb, Lamar Jackson draft or something like that. Sony Michel did his part. We won a Super Bowl with him. Shout out, like just now here we are, and everything is just not great over here. It could be better, but from what we had last year, my last meal from that place was not spectacular. So.
And Mike McCarthy will always be one of those coaches in history. He was okay. He won one Super Bowl. He's offensive minded. He always puts together competent offenses. I think he has some trouble against really good defenses. But he's always been able to put that together. So, even if he gets fired again or let go, I don't know if that stains the McCarthy legacy at this point.
I don't think he has a legacy, to be honest. I don't think Mike McCarthy has a legacy.
Part of the Hall of Fame for McCarthy. I think you're just talking about like, if he wins one more Super Bowl, he'll have two fan bases who will always be like, oh yeah, McCarthy won us one Super Bowl.
Yeah. He did that thing that he needed to do.
Yeah.
That might be the only reason we keep him around is the unshakable faith and hope that he will be the coach to end the drought for Dallas.
Yeah, and it's the conversation of he's been there before. I think that really gets downplayed sometimes. Like, yeah, maybe he hasn't taken you there yet or recently, but he has been there. And the moment wasn't too big. It's not like he's been to 2 and lost 2. He won 1, and that counts for something, much more than a rookie coaching hire would. So,
damn.
Don't think
Mike Tomlin. I can't agree with you on that yet.
I feel like you hear that take mostly from Steelers fans. You don't hear that take from any other fan base around the NFL.
Just to make sure people who are watching saw he is a Steelers fan, so Blake is correct.
I want to put up Drew's comment about D-Hop is going to look great in purple and black. So we're talking about him to the Ravens, Drew, after OBJ. I don't know about that.
They also used the first on Zay Flowers too. Like Rashard Bateman. They used the first round pick on Bateman too, I believe. No, he was a second round pick, I think. That's a lot of. Again, I'm getting to my lot of assets in one basket conversation that I was in last week, but I don't know. I feel like that's an expensive thing for the Ravens now.
I'm trying to see how much cap space they have right now.
This year should be okay. It's next year that's going to be the issue for them, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going all in, maybe, but I really feel like you need to let those rookies develop. You can't have OBJ and D-Hop and then have 3 solid 2 wide receivers, 2 of which are sitting on the bench because we're letting DeAndre Hopkins play. If anything, I'd like to see them make a push at a running back like Dalvin Cook if he becomes available. I think that would be a dynamite addition for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that play because both Dobbins we don't know is healthy yet, and having Cook, like the way that they could use their formations, because the Ravens always come out in that funky formation too, like the run they could split them and have Cook and Dobbins and Lamar back there.
Which, I mean, Cook's a pretty good pass blocking back, if I'm remembering correctly. And I don't know that I don't know if I've ever thought that about Dobbins. So I think he gives you some versatility there. So I don't know.
That's a nice thought. I like that.
There's no team that really doesn't want D-Hop as your wide receiver too, because his name and his reputation and the highlight reels. Because I mean, we're only 2 years, I think, removed from Hail Murray. Right, which broke the internet. I just don't know. In this conversation with Lamar Jackson still being young, I think you do want to give those young rookies room to develop to keep them on cheap contracts. So,
yeah, I like that a lot. Blake, you want to respond to that before we get to our next segment here?
Respond to D-Hop potentially going to the Ravens.
That and the Hail Murray, just because I wanted to get a jab in at you.
Yeah.
I haven't been
I
able
forgot
to
that
in a
was
minute.
against the
So.
Bills. That's on me.
Hail Murray. I remember that. I was at work when that happened, and yeah, Stephon Diggs. We had just had such an amazing drive going down the field, and Diggs was off on the sideline celebrating like we had won. And I don't know. I mean that was. I mean that and 13 seconds weren't that different. But the difference with Hail Murray was that the Cardinals went on to finish 8-8, and I don't know if they won another game that season. Maybe they won one more game. And after that, and the Bills went on to go to the AFC Championship that year.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say about that.
This is a good response.
And
Facts don't care.
and it was a great play, and I would love to have that kind of playmaker on our team, so that maybe when we're in a game like that again with the Chiefs or Bengals, that we have someone to 13 seconds them with.
All right, I like that. So
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
we're pushing on time again because we're gonna go another hour and 12. We're not another, but an hour and 20, just like usual. I should just schedule it like that. But now we're coming up to the tail of the tape because we're 100 days away from kickoff. What better to do than preview the kickoff game, right? So a little weird flex here, I would say. When the schedule got released, the Lions are playing the Chiefs. It's Thursday night football, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's Thursday night football, first game of the season. I think this is going to be a tighter game than most. I think the Chiefs are going to win 27-26 is my prediction. I think that the Lions defense is going to be an underrated asset for them going into the season. I think Aiden Hutchinson makes that like jump to like Nick Bosa status this year. I think that like I watched him pick off Aaron Rodgers twice, and then he blows out like he plays the flat so well he can rush the passer, he can cover the run. The dude's 6'7", but like he's literally just a freakazoid by nature. So yeah, he's gonna be that dude that nobody's really talking about right now. That he could be a defensive player of the year candidate. I think he's going to impact the game and the Chiefs quite a lot, but not enough for the Lions to pull out the win. I really like the Lions this year, but I don't think they're that team quite yet. So it's gonna be a shootout though. It's gonna be one of those games that we will remember for quite a while. So who Blake, I'll let you hit this one because you're up last.
I had an idea. I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember they have another defensive end who I think was like an undrafted free agent last year.
James Houston. Yeah.
His last name was Houston, I was about to say. And he had a hell of a game against the Bills on Thanksgiving. And he really caught my attention even more than Aiden Hutchinson did. And that was one game. But you're right about their pass rush up front. They have to be better than they were last year on defense because it's hard to be any worse. But I will in terms of the game being closer than people might expect. The Lions in week 1 last year, I know that's a whole season ago, did give the Eagles all they could handle. And the Eagles were undefeated for over half the season. And the Lions were like the only team that had even tested them. However, with all that being said, I think that this game will probably be a game through halftime into the third quarter. And then I think that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are going to do Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce things to them. And the Chiefs are going to win by a couple of touchdowns.
Word. Nolan, you wanna hop on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. The Chiefs are going to smoke the Lions. I think they're going to beat them by a hefty amount. I have 42-14. I know the Lions defense is tough, but this is the Chiefs' first banner ceremony in Arrowhead with a full crowd. The last time they got a banner ceremony was going into COVID year, and they did not get a full house. Detroit's not ready for that. I sound like a Chiefs fan, which is crazy because I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, but I know just from what I've seen that it's gonna be an unbearable environment for Detroit. I really don't see them competing past maybe the first quarter, and then things are going to start to snowball from there. This team is going to be very, very good. I think Detroit has a chance to kind of build off of the end of last year. They went on that run where they won like 8 of their last 10 or something crazy like that, and they were really, really good. I think they'll snowball off of it, but first they got to get smacked in the teeth in Kansas City. The Bills went in and smacked the Rams last year in the season opener. Complete opposite of this. The defending champions, the banner droppers, are going to play way too well. They're going to want to play well in front of a sold out crowd for the opening of the season, for the opening of just at Arrowhead in general, and I don't think this is going to be close.
Who's the unsung hero for you?
I'm going to go Jerick McKinnon. That was a big offseason addition for them. They brought him back. That guy had more receiving touchdowns last year than guys like DeAndre Hopkins.
The whole Patriots wide receiving core?
So, I mean, he's a very valuable asset to their offense. And so I think if Aiden Hutchinson and them are active on the line, look for a lot of those little dump down passes off to the left and right side out in the flats. And Jerick McKinnon is going to thrive in those situations. And I think it's going to be big for them. Then, obviously, if we're talking who's going to be the big dog out of everybody, Travis Kelce is probably the obvious pick just because he will do Travis Kelce things. He'll run a 10-yard stick route and somehow get wide open, and he'll just throw it to him, and he'll rack up the yards and the touchdowns, and it'll be easy for him.
He's basically invisible to some people, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. Louie here, I'm going to throw up a comment, and then we can get to your takes on this here. So Sora had a lot to say. So high-functioning offense for the Lions, defense, not a liability at this point. Yeah, I agree with, if not favorites, then close to favorites. Like, I like the Lions a lot this year in that division. I think it's weak. Louie, what do you got?
Yeah, so I have actually a much closer game apparently than everybody else other than Tyler. I have 34-31. Chiefs pull out the win. If Jameson Williams was not suspended, you would see this score reversed. Here's what I think is not being talked about enough. Ben Johnson was one of the most sought-after head coaching candidates before he went back to Detroit to be their offensive coordinator. I like Spagnuolo. I like his defense. I just don't think the star power is there on the other side, and the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the NFC and in the entirety of the NFL. So, and everybody forgets the greatest game I've seen in the last 3 years was Mahomes versus Jared Goff on, I think it was Monday Night Football, Rams versus Chiefs, right? And I think the offensive firepower on both sides of this ball are very reminiscent of that game. So somebody get the gritty gamblers on here. We're taking the over for sure. My unsung hero of the game is James Houston. Blake kind of stole it. So I'm going to steal his that he didn't mention, Kadarius Toney. I agree with you, Store. But James Houston, they didn't play him until like the back half of the season. He's a rookie. He was taken in like the 6th round, I think. And he got 8 sacks to end the season. I'm almost positive was the final number.
Yeah, I think 2 were against the Bills on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. He's good. He's opposite Aiden Hutchinson. And they added Brian Branch which I don't think we're talking about, I think is one of the most instinctive players coming out of this draft. I think he's really going to help Jack Campbell have to cover Kelsey, although I still think 2 rookies on Kelsey's a mismatch. So expect him to have a big day. And my fantasy star, Amon-Ra St. Brown, come through for my dynasty team.
Word, I actually didn't get to say my fantasy star. It kind of piggybacks off what you were saying, Louie. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I think the fantasy star of this game is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, their number 12 overall draft pick. The Chiefs are liable against the running back passing routes, I believe. Their linebackers are good. Nick Bolton is more – he can cover. It's not that he can't cover. He's more of a downhill type of linebacker, I would say. He kind of creates a mismatch. He was one of those dudes in college, 40 receptions averaged in his last 2 seasons at Alabama. That screams like 75, 80 catch guy in the NFL. And I think that with Jameson Williams not being healthy, he could play in the slot. They're going to be a lot of 2-back sets. He's going to get dump offs. They're going to have him going on the angle routes, wheel routes. Like you said, Ben Johnson was one of the more creative offensive minds. He got Swift the ball when he was on the field. And Gibbs, I think, is better. He's more durable than Swift. So, yeah, I think he pops off for 2 of those touchdowns that the Lions score and like 150 all-purpose yards, give or take. Maybe. He's gonna look like it's gonna be like Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's like opening game. Except he's gonna look way more electric, and it's gonna look like it's gonna be way cooler. Edwards-Helaire had like 20 carries, like 110 yards, give or take, in his first game, and like a touchdown and like a receiving touchdown. Everybody was like, "Yeah, it was the best pick in fantasy." Yeah, and they were just wrong. So, not going to be wrong here on Gibbs. I think that Gibbs is the way more explosive player, way better prospect. And he is going to be a beast. But again, Aiden Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, not enough to beat the Chiefs in the first game, but enough to give us a really, really good show. So weird flex, like I said, but I feel like the odds makers did, or not the odds makers, the schedule makers did us a good service here. Well, I think we'll get a good game, unlike Nolan thinks. All right. So that we did that one kind of quick, I would say. Now we're going to move on to dissecting divisions. So we're going to do this every week. We'll pick a division. We'll do record predictions for each 4 teams, most polarizing player on each team, and then one hot take per each team. We'll do this every week for every division leading up to the season. Yeah, so we can go team by team. We can all talk about the team and then do the 3 things, and then move on to the next team. Bahookie, you want, or Louie, you did you were up last, so you want to start?
Oh yeah, which team you want to start with?
Yeah, let's start with your team because it's probably quickest and easiest for you there.
Yeah. Okay. I'd go about 6 to 7 wins is where I'd comfortably put the Texans. I think 8 is outperforming expectations. Just a lot of rookies, a lot of growing pains. I could comfortably see them pushing the Colts for the 2nd spot in the AFC South. I think it'll be a 1-game spread, to be honest. I don't think the Colts are going to be as bad as people think. I don't think the Texans are going to be as bad as people think. And I think the Titans are going to be worse than people think. So, yeah, I have the Texans probably 2nd or 3rd, 1 game out of either spot with 7 wins on the season.
So who do you think their most polarizing player on the Texans is?
Most polarizing player on the Texans as far as like could be really good, could be really bad?
Why am I tuning in to watch a Texans game?
I think to me, Stroud, I think is the most polarizing player. 2nd overall. There was a lot of talk about him in the offseason with the cognition test and all of that stuff. But I think the true most polarizing player is Will Anderson because of how much they gave up to get him. To immediately silence that conversation, he has to have a double-digit rookie season on sacks. I think anything less than that is is you're going to see that whole conversation come back up about they gave up too much. Who do the Cardinals turn that into? Things like that.
Yeah, for sure. We can do. I think I might add one more thing to this. What do you think the most exciting game of your season is going to be?
To be honest, I think it's Panthers Texans. I think it's picks 1, 2, and 3 playing in the same game. I'd give a close nod to the Browns. Obviously, I think every time they play for the next 2-3 years, there's going to be a conversation. So I'll give the nod to the Texans. I mean, to the Panthers Texans game.
Word. Last thing, one hot take for the Texans season.
One hot take for the Texans season. I think Derek Stingley ends as the top 3 corner this year.
Very nice. Love that. He had all the tools in the
And I
last
obviously
year's draft.
After this, go look up the latest OTA video that the Texans put out. He's probably put on 10 pounds of muscle. He's huge. I didn't think it was the same person. So I think 1 year into the league, a better system and a better training regimen. I think it's going to be a good year for him.
For sure. Honestly, Lee, this might be a better way to do the most polarizing player. Maybe we do it by division. Do you still think Will Anderson would be the most polarizing player in the division?
No, I'd agree with Lee. I think Anthony Richardson is just so boomer bust, and I think he's such a traits-driven pick at 4th overall. I think he has to be. Although close behind it, I would say is Will Levis. I think his slide is really going to give a lot of steam. He's going to have a couple good preseason games, and they're going to be like, start him over Tannehill, start him over Tannehill. He's going to come in and lose like 3 straight. So they don't have a good team. They don't have a good line. I like Skoronski, but he profiles much more as a guard, and that does nothing to address the gap left by Taylor Lewan leaving that team. So Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and then Will Anderson.
For sure. All right, Bahookie. So Texans, what do you think their record's going to be?
I agree with most of the things that Louie said about the Texans. I think 6-7 wins is probably a good range for them to be in. I think that I agree that I think the Titans have a pretty good chance to be the worst team in that division. And yeah, I think it's the Jags to lose. I think the Jags win that division pretty handily. And it's going to come down to like the divisional games between the Colts and the Texans for who that 2nd and 3rd place team is. I don't see either of them as wild card teams this year. Go ahead. What should be the next? But there's several different parts to break down of this. Which
most polarizing player. Let's go in the division though. You don't have to do just the Texans. In the division.
That'd be a lot less to answer. In the division, there's a couple different candidates here. Anthony Richardson was said. CJ Stroud is one to talk about too, but they're rookie quarterbacks, and until you see them play games and what they look like, they're always going to be a reason that people tune in or tune out. I gotta say it's Calvin Ridley, and for the Jags, he's they traded up. What did they trade away to get him? 2nd round pick. But yeah, that's pretty significant. Prior to his suspension, he was looking like a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, and that is going to be a very lethal piece to add to that offense. And yeah, that Bills Jags game week 5 at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is definitely one that I got circled on my calendar.
All right, give me one hot take. You can let's go one hot take for the Texans. We'll spin it around for that. We'll do most polarizing player in the division, but the other two we'll take by team.
Hot take for the Texans. I don't really have anything prepared for this, honestly. I did. Sure, I'll say that they finished second in their division. I think that they're going to be better than the Colts.
Cool. All right, Nolan, do you want to rip the Texans one? Do you want to start with the hot take, or you want to do record prediction first?
I can just go in order.
Right.
So I got Texans at 7-10 on the year. I think 6 to 7. You guys are hitting that on the nose. It's a good ceiling for them. They're still going to have a lot to figure out. I think in those 10 losses, you're probably going to see a lot more one possession games. They really are showing their commitment to try and make a jump and get back to that competitor level. And I think with how they drafted, that's every bit of even more evidence that they wanted to do that. So I think in those 10 losses, you're going to see a lot of close games. As far as polarizing player, I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence. I really think the ceiling for him is kind of capped right now, and it really shouldn't be with how much hype was around him. And after how the Jags just did this last year, his expectations are tenfold now. So this division is wide open, I think. The Titans are falling off now. They're not the head honcho of this division. I think the Jaguars are, and Trevor Lawrence needs to go out and prove that. So
for sure. All right, Word.
And-
Now give us one hot take for the Texans season.
one hot take, they have offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year. I think Stroud and Anderson take that home.
They pulled the Jets from last year and do it. That's
I think
back-to-back years. That's pretty lit.
No, your thank you card tomorrow.
I honestly I think with the way the division is, with the way that their schedule looks, I think that they're a candidate to win like eight games. Like it's not, if this was the AFC of like 3 or 4 years ago, they could maybe even sneak into that wild card spot. I don't know if they have enough on offense to support Stroud for this year. I love John Mechie coming back from leukemia. I believe that he is a full participant in OTAs. Am I right, Louie?
He was a participant. He had a hamstring injury for part of it, but they're saying full for training camp.
Cool. I think that he is a dynamic player in a way that they really don't have right now. Robert Woods he's Bobby Trees. That dude's as consistent as they come. So coming off the ACL tear, it's kind of tough. You can't I wouldn't say you can build an offense around him, but you can definitely rely on him to be a solid mentor and a good wide receiver 3 if he's on the field. Nico Collins should be a decent field stretcher, contested catch type of guy. I love Dalton Schultz. I think that was one of the better moves they made. I think that one hot take for the Texans is Dalton Schultz very well could be a top 3 tight end this year, based on statistics. And just based on target share alone. Like, he's the only guy who has any sort of in his prime ability and has shown you the ability to be a solid player before. So they obviously gave him a pretty decent deal. And yeah, I think that my most polarizing player in the AFC South is Jonathan Taylor, coming off just a really tough season. This guy was absolutely dominant 2 years ago. I believe he had 25 touchdowns. It was like 15 on the ground and 10 in the air or something like that. It was ridiculous. He was an all-purpose, everything weapon, and he's 220 pounds. So it's like CMC doing that, but like with another 20 pounds on him. I think that the addition of Anthony Richardson takes some of the issues away from like being the focal point as a running back. You can alleviate some of that pressure, some of those loaded boxes. So yeah, I think that Jonathan Taylor is my most polarizing player. I think the Texans could win like 8 games, and Dalton Schultz could be a top 3 tight end this year.
God, I
Let's
hope
move.
not.
Let's move on to the Titans. I'll start since I went last. I think the Titans are a 3 to 5 win team maximum. They're going to be. I know they just drafted Will Levis, but they very well could be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. I'm not too sure what they're trying to do here. I agree. Skaronski he's the final touch on your offensive line. He isn't the dude I feel like you should try and make your stalwart tackle. Like, I feel like that puts way too much pressure on him and his ability currently. My hot take for the Titans is that Mike Vrabel gets fired at the end of the year because of how bad they do. Just because of how the optics of it, the owner's going to need another scapegoat. Titans fans aren't going to want to hear we're trying to rebuild. Like, somebody has to take the blame for the season going well because they still have Tannehill and Derrick Henry. It's like everybody sees that and they're like, why aren't we still winning like we were when this was like working? So, I mean, I would say AJ Brown, but no, that wasn't my decision. I think the Titans' most like watchable game might be against I don't think I'm gonna watch any Titans games this year. That's where I'm at. No, I'm just playing. I would say probably like Cincinnati or Baltimore in weeks 4 or 6, just because of the Cincinnati gives you both those teams give you a show. What? Who did I say play in the NFC? Thought I said AFC. Sorry, Lee. I meant AFC if I said NFC. All right. So who wants to hit the Titans?
Here, I'll go if we want to go kind of reverse order, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess this is kind of a combo hot take and record prediction. I have the Titans at 6-11 on the year. I think, yeah, they lost quite a bit, and they're going to have to deal with the exit of Ryan Tannehill. That's going to happen. But they still have Derrick Henry. They still built up their offensive line. I think they have the pieces to at least get to those 6 wins. I think that it's going to be an ugly 6 wins. But I think they could do it. It's obviously not going to be enough for anything other than, oh, you got the 6 wins and what's going to be arguably one of your worst seasons you guys have had at least in the last 5 years. So game to watch for them, I would say, good Lord Almighty.
Yeah, I just looked at it too. It was
week
very
5.
tough.
Look forward to see them play Anthony Richardson, get a divisional game, maybe. See how Anthony Richardson does, I guess. Derrick Henry, I think, is going to be their main answer, and they're going to run him into the ground, and then this will be I bet he's gone after this year. They're going to run him dry, and then he'll be gone. So, yep.
All right. Was it Louie or Blake? Which one do you want to go first? All right, Blake, hit the Titans up.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of what Nolan said for my hot take, I don't have them winning six games. I have them picking in the top three to 5 picks. My hot take is going to be that they're going to try and move Derrick Henry at the trade deadline.
I should have gone first.
It's sell the farm season in Nashville, and start trying and get whatever you can for in terms of assets moving forward, because the Titans are kind of where the Patriots were a couple years ago. Where like the entire division has already started their rebuild and have like their young quarterbacks and their young pieces, and not a good position to be in. And it's when we're seeing the Steelers too. Kind of went through that same thing, and just the timing of the builds aren't very good right now. Which of those games is that they play in is going to be the most watchable? Yeah, maybe to tune in to see some of those young quarterbacks play if my team's not playing at the same time, or at the end of the year. Yeah, if they're playing against Baltimore or Cincinnati, because I'd be interested to see if that could they be a trap game for one of those, for a good team at some point later in the season when you're fighting for playoff position. The Chiefs routinely blow one game against a scrub team. They lost to the Colts last year, so it's the NFL. Things happen, but the Titans aren't our marquee draw at all this year, and unless Will Levis comes in and lights the world on fire, which I don't see happening.
Throwing to who?
Traylon Burks.
Chigo Okonwu?
Yeah, the fantasy hype man of the year. He's been all over my fantasy feed.
Yeah, I be snatching him everywhere I can. Louie, you want to finish the Titans off here?
Yeah, sure. So my record prediction is 4, and there's 17 games in the season now, right? 4 and 13. All right. So my hot take is also that Derrick Henry gets traded at the deadline, which makes my must-watch game of the season Week 6 against the Ravens. I think they'll be 1-5 or 0-6 at that point. I think they have a really tough start to their schedule. I could see 2-4. Maybe they win the Browns and the Colts. It depends on how the Browns look. I think that is the last game you see Derrick Henry play as a Titan. So I think that is your must-watch game of the season. I think he's traded during their bye before the Week 8 deadline or Week 10 deadline or whatever it is. But I don't think they'll play him after that. You're out of playoff contention. You're probably not keeping him another year. You get a third, you get a second for him. You move off of him. I don't know what there is to say about the Titans other than I have no idea what they're doing. You're taking a quarterback 2 years in a row, and you're probably going to be bad enough that you're going to take a quarterback or going to be in a position to take a much better quarterback this coming year. How do you justify 3 quarterbacks in 3 years? Like, you're not giving any of those guys a chance to develop. I thought they moved off Malik Willis too fast, because if you're going to be bad this year, you may as well have spent that pick on the trenches to me. Not that I dislike Will Levis. I don't like where he went, and I don't like why they took him. So I think you're going to see him starting in a bad situation. I don't think he starts until after Henry's gone, which I think puts him in an even worse position. So yeah, I think they're going to put him in there to get him reps, and I think he's going to have a rough time. I think the defense carries them to 4 to 5 wins, but I'm expecting more 4. And then
my bad. No, you go. My bad. I thought you were done.
You want me to roll right into the Jags, and we'll just go back.
Yeah. That was literally what I was gonna say. So you're good.
So as far as the Jags go, top dog of the division, I think Lawrence is still ascending. If you guys have watched the show before, you know I'm a little bit lower on him than the rest of the crew. As far as the Jags' place in the whole NFL hierarchy, I like the Calvin Ridley ad. I dislike what they've done with the secondary, and I think that front seven is going to have to be very potent to compensate for how bad their secondary is. So my hot take is that Trevor Lawrence ends the season as fantasy QB1. I think he has the potential, and I think they have the throwing power to do it. And I think most of Travis Etienne's touchdowns come off of screen passes out to the flat, because that is what Doug Peterson loves to do. So I think you see a really inflated number of touchdowns there. So fantasy QB round 1, I have them ending with 10 to 11 wins, depending on how their secondary holds up.
Game of the year for Jacksonville?
Game of the year for Jacksonville. Let me pull up their schedule. I feel like it's going to be against like the Chargers or the Chiefs. They've got to play somebody good. They play the Bills in week 5, I think. I feel like that'll be a good one. I think they need to assert themselves, especially Lawrence needs to assert himself as a top 4 QB in the AFC. I think he has to do that against Josh Allen. But I could also see the game against the Niners being good as long as their defense retains some of what it had under the last 2 coordinators. So Niners or
For
Bills.
sure. Awesome. Bahookie, hit it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked about the Jags indirectly by talking about the other teams. So I think my hot take, I think that the Jags clinched this division with like 4 or 5 games left in the season. I don't think it's going to be close in this division. Game of the year, I'm biased. Bills Jags. That's the one that I know that I'll be watching. We gave some other good examples. Chargers would be a playoff rematch, and I'm sure the Chargers would love to get one back against the Jags. And game against the 49ers, which is later in the season, I believe, should be a good one. But yeah, I think that Bills Jags game. I mean, we played them in London years ago. That was back in the EJ Manuel era, and he spotted him like 28 points, and we were down like 21-0 or 28-0, and we ended up making it to overtime in spite of that. And then lost in overtime in typical Bills fashion.
I remember that London game. I remember watching that.
Yeah, it was the first game in NFL history to be broadcast on Yahoo Sports. I remember that. Anyways, what other things do I have to say about them? What do I think their record's going to be? I think they're an 11 or 12 win team.
And then.
And what else?
I was gonna say one hot take.
Oh yeah, they're gonna close this division up in like the beginning of December. They're gonna clinch their division.
Word. Nolan, you wanna rip it?
Yep. So as far as record goes for them, I'm gonna go 9-8. I think they're gonna have another year where they're just kind of really trying to figure out why they're not winning key games, and that it's really going to hurt them, especially with how well they did at the end of last year to make that playoff run. But fortunately for them, 9-8, I think, is going to get them the division. And I have the same thing as Blake. I think that's my hot take, is that they win this division far earlier than some of these other AFC divisions are closed up in. So I like that December time frame there that they can close it up. Game to watch, I would say maybe week 2 against Kansas City. They complain about not getting the big games. They want people to respect them. Well, you're going to get Kansas City in week 2. And it's at your house, so you better win. So I think that's a very, very big game for them to be like, okay, put up or shut up. If you get smoked here, don't talk trash to the top dogs in the AFC anymore until you can prove that you're good enough. So
just adding on to that, Nolan. So the Chiefs open on Thursday night, so they actually get extra prep time, right? So, yeah.
Yep. Jags do play overseas twice this year because they're probably going to move to London eventually. They're going to be the London Jaguars.
All my Jacksonville friends hate that so much.
Yeah, right. I can only imagine, but like that's where it seems like it's heading. To me, I don't know. I got this creeping feeling.
Do you become a Dolphins fan, or do you have to stay a Jacksonville fan?
I don't know. I don't know. I really couldn't answer that question.
Yeah, that's why the Jaguars have to win this year, because otherwise the Jacksonville team's greatest memory will be Blake Bortles, and we cannot let them go out that way.
Nope. So yeah, Lee, I think you're right on that. So yeah, I'll get into mine. My hot take, record prediction, and game of the year kind of all roll into one. So I think that they are going to go 14-3. They're going to lose. I just looked at their schedule. It's tough, but they're going to lose to Kansas City. It's going to be a tight game. They're going to lose to Buffalo. It's going to be a tight game. They'll win pretty much every other game. They're going to lose to one of the teams that they shouldn't win, or they shouldn't. They're going to beat Joe Burrow in Cincy. Or no, I think they play at home against Cincy. One sec. Jacksonville. Yeah, they play at home. So they're going to beat Cincy at home. They're going to beat Baltimore at home. Trevor Lawrence is going to be an MVP candidate. So I'm taking it a step further, Louie, from your fantasy prediction. He's going to be an MVP candidate. And the game of the watch is going to be that Cincy game. It's going to be an absolute barn burner. I think it's going to be like a 42-38 type of game, Jags. And it's late in the season. That's probably going to be their clinching game, and it's going to be cement themselves as like a force. So it's like, oh, we should probably watch out for that. Kind of how like Cincy played the Bills in the regular season again last year. It's like, oh wow, they came to play. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on Jacksonville. I see the secondary issues. Their offense is so good. They drafted Tank Bigsby as well, and that gives them a legitimate in between the tackles running back, so that Travis Etienne can do his job, which is be a passing down specialist.
I'm out on Tank Bigsby because I am way, way up on DeArness Johnson.
Okay.
I love DeArness Johnson. And I thought the Browns were crazy for not bringing him back. He signed a good contract in Jacksonville. I think he's going to earn that 2 role over Bigsby.
Okay. Then DeArness Johnson, again, really good in between the runner or in between the tackles runner, patient, good one-cut guy, like does take the workload off of ETN. So, yeah, weak division. I
have DeArness Johnson on Snapchat. Fun fact.
That's awesome.
Drop it in the chat.
I'm not going to do that.
So yeah, that's my Jags wrap up. I'll dive into the Colts, and we got one more section to finish.
Hold on. We gotta go back and plug this real quick. You gonna snap him and tell him to hop on next week?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Send him this clip. I'm a huge DeArness Johnson fan. Going to do great things in Jacksonville. Come on the show. We'll talk about it.
That might work. It's very nice. It was a nice invitation.
I've tried that with several Cowboys players, and I haven't gotten any answer yet. So,
but the point is, you tried. That's the point.
I met him at Beef O'Brady's one time when he was at USF.
It's a good place.
Anyways, I'll save that for the rest of the story for another
day. So yeah, Colts. I think they're gonna be. I think they'll be second in the division. I think them and the Texans are gonna have the same record, and then like some tiebreaker split is gonna put them ahead of the Texans. I think that their offense is going to be explosive. I don't know about their defense. Their secondary scares me. They don't really. What is it? Is Stephon Gilmore still there? Or no, he went to the Cowboys. Dallas. He went to the Cowboys. I don't really know what they're doing at secondary. It seems like Shaq Leonard or no, what's his name? The linebacker on Shaquille. He changed his name. Darius Leonard.
Shaquille Leonard was correct.
Shaquille Leonard was correct. He changed his name. So he hasn't played very often over the past 2-3 years, and when he does, he doesn't look like the same guy really, and he was a stalwart in that defense. I don't really see where they're getting their pass rush from currently. So it's going to be a lot of games that I feel like are high scoring, and I don't know if they have everything they need to pull those types of games out. They'll win, I'd say 8 games. I think the Texans are right around the same. They'll probably, like I said, they'll probably split. So the one hot take for the Texans is that Anthony Richardson shatters the rushing record for quarterback. Not just breaks it, like shatters it. Like I believe Fields had was it 1,000 rushing yards last year? It was like between 800 and 1,000. I think Anthony Richardson very well could rush for like 1,200 yards next year, just because of the way their offense is going to be set up and the way that they don't really have a legitimate wide receiver one. Like Pittman's like a 2A or like a 1B, you know what I mean? So thank you, Lee. Appreciate having you here. So yeah, okay, maybe not Shatter. So, Justin Fields actually really did a number on that. I might need to reevaluate my hot take. Okay, give me a minute then. The one game I'm looking forward to in Cincinnati, or not Cincinnati, in Indianapolis would be they play honestly the New England game in Germany. I think is going to be the most watchable game for that year. It's got I don't know about most watchable. I think it's the most game I'm most excited to watch in Germany. So it's a primetime game. Going back to the hot take thing. Josh Downs produces like a solid wide receiver like 2 season, even with Anthony. He overcomes Alec Pierce and the rest of the receivers over there. So yeah, that's my Colts take. Nolan, you want to go?
Yeah. So I actually have the Colts at the bottom of the division here. I have them at 5-12. I see this as another team who's going to have a lot of close games where it's going to be one possession. It's like, okay, they're there. There's glimpses and there's sparks. They still need a couple more pieces though. So I think at 5-12, they could still get a pretty solid draft pick out of that if they tried to. And if they can make that work and go get another wide receiver, depending who's coming up in this next class, go get another guy to be a wide receiver 1 or 2, or maybe even go O-line and try and protect a little bit more. I think that would be good for them. They're just going to have to do a bit more rebuilding to be a legitimate team, or at least above where they have been. Games to watch, I'd say weeks 1 and 2 for them. Division games to open the year. That's very rare that you see 2 division games back to back to open a season. And so I think that's going to be big for them. They can start out 2-0. That's going to help them at least in the divisional running. Big player for them, or a hot take. That's what it is. I think Richardson breaks the rookie passing yards record in a season.
But the other way. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, we're gonna get crazy here with the 5-12 team. I mean, I think he could do that. So,
all right, Louie. Oh no, wait. I keep getting this mixed up. It's Blake. Yep. You keep pointing me down. Yeah, there you go. Blake, hit it up.
Yeah, I had them as the 3rd team in the division. So I'm saying between like 4 to 6 wins. So I'll call it like 5.5 wins. And I'm going to say for my hot take that Jonathan Taylor reminds everyone who he is this year. And because he is that dude, we'll just say that. And yeah, the zone reads and read options with him and Anthony Richardson are just going to be absolutely disgusting. I think especially like early in the season, that's going to be how they win some of those games, because teams aren't really going to know how to deal with that right off the bat. And I think they will probably start to get figured out a little bit more. And I liked what Nolan said about them losing a lot of close games. Game that's most exciting. Probably Colts Texans. Just because they're kind of like, I feel like at similar points in their development right now, and young teams that are like in trying to progress. Again, don't see them as playoff teams in the current AFC landscape, but they've got some good young pieces that they're gonna be able to build around in the coming years.
For sure. Louis, finish us off on the Colts, so we'll do the impact block and get out of here.
Oh yeah, I said I'm gonna try and get us out of here quick. Okay, so yeah, I've got about 6 to 7 wins fighting, like I said, for that second spot with the Texans. My game of the year is Panthers because Frank Reich is now the head coach of the Panthers. Just got fired from the Colts. So I would like to see. Sorry, Colts fans. Not sorry because I hate the Colts. I'd like to see.
You're a big revenge game guy.
I love revenge games.
I noticed that.
Man. I love them. So I want to see Frank Reich just steamroll. They didn't let him have a quarterback the whole time he was there. They take one as soon as he's gone. I think it's disrespectful. So give me Bryce Young throwing for like 5 touchdowns on the Colts. My hot take, though, I think Anthony Richardson has a rookie year very reminiscent of Andrew Luck. So, and let me read you these stats because these are going to shock you. 54.1% completion rate his rookie year, which is pretty low. Andrew Luck struggled with his accuracy. I think you'll see Anthony Richardson do the same. His touchdowns were 23. I think you'll see that a little inflated because Richardson has a better rushing ability. But I also think you'll see 18 interceptions be a little bit higher, 2021, because I think Richardson has poor decision-making. So I'd put him about a 6 to 7 win team thanks to a good defense, a middling defense led by a really good defensive coordinator. I really like their defensive coordinator. He was really sought after in a lot of personnel changes this offseason. They retained him. So, yeah, I'd put him right around the 4,000, 4,500 all-purpose yards for the year. I think he puts together a really solid rookie season.
For sure. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the AFC South. I believe we pretty much all have it. Jags first, then we're kind of alternating between the Texans and Colts. And, well, Nolan, you have the Titans third. So, yeah, we're all kind of in the same boat on that. Interchangeable third and fourth pieces. So, yeah, those dissecting divisions. We'll be back next week on that one. Lastly, we're going to do the impact block for the Arizona Cardinals. Louie, you can start us off.
Who's even on this team? Paris Johnson Jr. Sure.
Okay.
Because I literally don't know anymore. Impact players, they lost. I thought they were going to retain that rusher that went to the Broncos. I want to say his name was also Josh Allen, but it's not. I can't remember what his name was. There's too many Josh Allens in the league. I don't know. I'd have to look him up. So, yeah, I'm going to say Paris Johnson Jr. is your impact player. He's got to make that line better. And I don't think there's any defensive pieces that I'm excited about. So,
Bahookie, run it.
Trey McBride, young tight end, was starting to show a little bit of promise later in the year. They still have Zach Ertz there.
Yeah, the ghost of Zach Ertz's knees. Yeah,
and he wasn't completely healthy last year. Trey McBride was like one of like the pieces that was looking like it was coming along later in the year, but he's tight end position. I don't have earth shattering expectations for him in his second year, but I expect him to take a couple steps. I think he's a piece that they can continue to build around.
For sure. Nolan, what do you got on the Cardinals?
I'm going to be very, very cookie cutter here. I'm just going to say Kyler Murray. I think he wants to have a bounce back year here. That's just kind of where he's at. Otherwise, Arizona's going to start shopping.
Hard to bounce back without an ACL, but
I know that. But that's just kind of the spot he's in. Is it's like, okay, when do we officially just cut ties and we're like, we got to go in a different direction here? I know we just paid you a boatload of money, but when is enough with him? And so if anybody's going to like desperately need to have a big year, it's him. Now, are the Cardinals going to be great? Probably not. But if he can put up some MVP numbers, 1,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing, that could maybe save him. But if he doesn't do that and he has another down year and the ACL injury just kind of lingers and he's slowed down, he's not at what he needs to be, then Arizona's going to start looking around, start window shopping, aka Lee saying Caleb Williams in the draft. But I'm sure Arizona's already had scouts up there in Southern California looking at Caleb Williams. So, I mean, that's the only route I would go here.
For sure. So I'm going to go with somebody who very well could get boned in this whole situation, but I'm going to go Jonathan Gannon here. They ended up making a pick swap. I believe it was like 20. It was between 20 and 30 picks difference in the top half of the top 3 rounds of the draft because of some sort of like what am I trying to say here? Tampering. Tampering with the Eagles. So then they paid him decent money for a coach, I'm pretty sure. Gave him a solid tenure. They really want to build their defense. If you're going to hire a defensive-minded coach, that's like where things need to be improved, honestly. So Kyler's not going to be there for much of the year. I don't think this team's going to be very good, but I do think you could see some improvement on some of their defensive players because I do think they have talented players. Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, I believe, are both very good athletes. I don't think they're being used very well. Budda Baker, if he's still on the Cardinals, is another really, really solid impact player that can be used as a chess piece. I don't think he has the full complement of weapons on defense to really pull anything off, but I think he's going to show improvement in that area. But yeah, so it's Jonathan Gannon for me. That is pretty much our show. As I said earlier, we're going to try and get us under an hour. We're successfully 32 minutes late on that.
I blame Nolan.
Yeah, it's your fault. You ruined our streak of going 20 minutes over. We're now 30.
Whoops.
I honestly don't even think we could do this show in an hour. But that's our show. Make sure you check out StadiumRant. It's at StadiumRant.com, at StadiumRant HQ on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also subscribe to our YouTube page. And yeah, that's all I really have to say to you guys for now. Make sure you follow these fine gentlemen here as well on Twitter if you're watching it on Twitter. Good night, everybody.
Later, guys.